Okay, this is Dan with the National Weather Service. Let's go ahead and get started with this update on Tropical Storm Francine. Some significant changes since the last advisory. The storm has been relocated further west, sort of a redefinition of the center, and as a result, the entire track is shifted about 10 to 15 miles west of where it was previously. So as a result, with the storm making a closer approach to the Texas coast, tropical storm watches have been issued for the entire Texas coast. So again, what has changed? Based on that new forecast further west, we do have tropical storm watches, issued for the entire Texas coast. The watch indicates the potential for tropical storm force winds. So we're talking about sustained winds at the coast, perhaps 40 to 50 miles per hour. Confidence is not extremely high yet from the Hurricane Center, so they have a watch there instead of a warning. So if confidence is higher, look for that upgrade to a tropical storm warning if that were the case. Confidence is certainly higher just offshore. And for those areas, we do have tropical storm warnings. We actually have a new hurricane warning for our northeast coastal waters. We will still need to monitor, of course. Right now, the storm is intensifying and sort of drifting a little bit west at this point. It will pick up a northwest and then north and northeast heading as we get into the day tomorrow. So once we see it make that turn and start to lift north, we should have more confidence in the forecast. No change to the surge forecast for most of the area. We will have coastal flood warnings, though, for our entire coastline. That also includes areas south of Freeport, which were in an advisory before. In the coastal flood warning area, looking for 1 to 3 feet of surge. That'll give us water levels of 4 to 5 feet above mean lower low water, leading to minor to moderate coastal flooding. So that part of the forecast hasn't changed a whole lot. Here's a look at the new track, and you can see the cone has edged ever so slightly left. Whereas it shifted right this morning, it's sort of shifted back left this afternoon. You see the extension of that tropical storm watch all up and down the coast. Hurricane Center has upgraded to a hurricane warning east of High Island over to across most of the Louisiana coastline. That's due to the higher winds there and also the higher confidence of hurricane force winds. The initial intensity is 65 miles per hour, so this system may well become a hurricane tonight. It has intensified fairly rapidly today, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. Here's another look at the cone, as well as a few talking points. Again, showing that initial intensity of 65 miles per hour, so already a strong tropical storm. It says there movement north-northwest at 7. It's hard to say based on the radar if it has made a northerly turn, but it should make that turn very soon, if not already. It is expected to make landfall now as a Category 2 hurricane. Earlier today, Category 1 was the forecast, so that intensity forecast has increased. Still looking at possible impacts for southeast Texas, including heavy rain, strong wind gusts, coastal flooding, and certainly dangerous marine conditions. We'll talk more about these one at a time. As we've been saying, the impacts will depend heavily on the track, and so we've seen just today about a 15-mile shift left in the track, and that has brought into play more the wind threat along the coast primarily, and perhaps a little bit of increased heavy rain threat. So this is our updated wind hazard graphic. You can see the different warnings in effect. We have tropical storm watches for the bays and the coastal zones. Right now, just along the immediate coast, and then warnings just offshore. You see the brighter red here, 20 to 60 nautical miles off of Galveston. That's a hurricane warning. So again, everything has been sort of upgraded a bit in terms of the wind forecast. Still not sure how far inland the higher winds will get. That's why right now the watch is just along the coast. It's possible if it looks like those winds extend inland, we would expand that. But right now, it seems like the strongest wind gusts should be right along the coast. But we'll have to monitor that. Here's a little radar capture of the Brownsville radar just about half an hour ago. You see this hole here in the reflectivity field off the coast of Mexico. That's the start of a hurricane eye. And this was confirmed by hurricane hunters who flew this system earlier today, seeing the start of an eye wall development. So absolutely, this Francine has intensified even in the last 6 hours to almost to hurricane status, and it very well may become a hurricane as early as tonight. Showing these wind probability graphics. This is the chance of tropical storm force winds, and what you see is these numbers are about 15 to 20% higher than they were earlier. So now right along the coast, looking at a 40 to 60, even a 70% chance of seeing tropical storm force winds, again, right along the coast. If you go one tier of counties inland, the chance is more like 30 to 40%. And then still further inland, the chances are much smaller for tropical storm force winds, which are, again, essentially 40 miles per hour or greater. If you look at strong tropical storm force winds, sustained 58 mile per hour winds, the chances are quite high offshore, and they're much lower at our coast, but they're higher than they were this morning. So again, this reflects a stronger system and also a slight shift to the left. So we sometimes use this as a power outage type wind threshold. So it gives you an idea. Hurricane force winds, again, not expected on our coastline. There is about a 5% chance though of hurricane force winds, but that would be very unlikely. It would require a further shift to the left, which is something, of course, we don't want to see. And then pretty high chances now of hurricane force winds offshore. These have gone up due to the stronger system. Not a whole lot of change in storm surge. Earlier, we had 1 to 3 feet of storm surge north of Freeport. Now the entire Texas coast has a 1 to 3 foot departure from average. And again, this brings us to water levels up around 4 to 5 feet above mean lower low water. So we saw these with Alberto, for example, these type of levels that would typically give us minor to even moderate coastal flooding. And then it should be pointed out on the beach fronts, this does not account to the wave action. So we're going to have pretty high surf coming in that can effectively add to these levels on the Gulf Coast. And so based on that, you can see our coastal flood warnings now really for our entire coastline from Chambers County, Bolivar, all the way down to Matagorda Bay. We have this coastal flood warning. No longer, the advisory from earlier has been upgraded. This really hasn't changed too much as far as the timing. It's really going to be that high tide Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. That's going to be our biggest issue. We'll actually see the water levels rise ahead of the storm. And then as it pulls away, we'll see offshore winds and we'll see those levels drop. So Tuesday night and Wednesday morning seem to be the critical time. This particular one for Eagle Point, typical of Galveston Bay on the west side. Galveston Bay entrance, again, looking at the potential for over 5 feet above mean lower low water. You can see some of the impacts there. Certainly Highway 87 on Bolivar, for example, would be impacted at these levels. And it's been pointed out by several coastal partners that we've had so much erosion already from Alberto and Beryl there's a lot of vulnerable areas along the coast. So we are concerned about this. Also Freeport, same idea here. Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, the period of biggest concern. As far as rainfall, even though we have a shift to the west, we still expect the heaviest rain to be perhaps just offshore. You can see the amounts indicated here with 4 to 6 inches just offshore. Quite possible that could start to creep closer to the coast, maybe even on the coast, something like a 4 to 6 inch rainfall amount, but not the 10 to 20 inches that should be falling over the coastal waters, and then perhaps on into Louisiana. So not a big change as far as the flood threat, but again, it's going to be greatest at the coast. And that's what this graphic is showing again, the chance of flash flooding, essentially, the excessive rainfall outlook, being the yellow areas being pretty much at the coast, our coastal areas, maybe on over to Chambers County, much greater chances as we get into Louisiana. So once again, we have had a change today. We have had a slight shift in the hurricane track that is forecast to now make a closer approach to the Texas coast. As a result, tropical storm force watches have been issued for the entire Texas coast. So that's the situation we're in. We have a stronger hurricane making a very close approach, but perhaps just missing us to the right. And as a result, on the left-hand flank of that system, we could be looking at some tropical storm force winds, some minor to moderate storm surge flooding, and even some more isolated to localized flash flooding, again, mainly at the coast. Should this shift even more to the left, then those impacts would be felt a bit more inland. But that's where we are at this point.